Hello, I'm Vicki Small, volunteer and legislative team member with AARP Indiana, based here in Evansville. Our volunteer team strategically draws attention to issues and advocates for changes to continually improve the quality of life for people 50 and over and their families. Our goal is to make it easier to age in place here in Evansville. Today, it is my pleasure to present a virtual interview with Mayor Lloyd Winnecke on his time served as the executive leader of our great city and many of the issues AARP Indiana cares about. If you're viewing this live, please submit questions and we will do our best to answer those throughout the program. We want to be cognizant of the mayor's schedule and therefore we'll jump right into the introductions. Lloyd Winnecke was inaugurated on January 1st, 2012 as the 34th mayor of the city of Evansville, Indiana. I've been fortunate to have known Lloyd since he was barely out of high school. He's a native of Evansville, and I've been proud to watch him build a successful career in news information and banking. It was a joy to see him assume the role as the city's top executive officer. Mayor Winnecke is a graduate of Central High School and University of Evansville. He and his wife Carol are members of St. Ben's and are active members of the community. He's a father of one daughter, Danielle, who resides in Tucson, Arizona with her husband, Steve, and their beautiful sons, Holden and Oliver. Mayor Winnecke will be interviewed by AARP Indiana's newest team leaders of its Evansville volunteer team, Leota Brigham and Diana Van Hooks. Leota and Diana, take it away.
Thank you, Vicki. Hello, Mr. Mayor. How are you today?
Good afternoon. I'm doing well and very grateful that we just got a little bit of snow and more rain than snow.
That's right. How are you doing?
Doing great, thank you. Y'all doing well?
Yes, I'm doing pretty good. Pretty good.
Well, Mr. Mayor, go ahead.
I would like to know, since the city several years ago had adopted E that was for everyone, so what accomplishments are you most proud of to reflect that motto?
Well, first, I think it's important to know how we kind of got to E is for everyone. When I first came into office, I thought it was really important that we figure out how we brand or market not just the city, but the region to the outside world. But not just to the outside world, how we market it and brand to ourselves and to each other. So I brought a group of community leaders together and I asked them to watch a YouTube video of a really long lip sync done in Grand Rapids, Michigan, done to the Don McLean's song, American Pie. Bye Bye Miss American Pie. So,
yeah.
So we sat down and watched it, and it's a really very uplifting. I told this group, I'm not saying we have to do that, but we have to do something to create enthusiasm about how we look upon ourselves and how we sell ourselves to the outside world. So that started about a 2.5 year, almost 3 year process of working with local ad agencies. And at the time, there were 3 ad agencies based in Evansville that came together that worked collaboratively to get us to the point of E is for everyone. And there were finally, at the end of the day, there were 3 slogans, if you will, that we tested with consumers, and we tested with leaders in the community and outside the community. And E is for everyone, by far, was the phrase that resonated with people. And I think people liked it for a lot of reasons. First, if you take a minute and go to the E is for Everyone website, and it's just eisforeveryone.com, you'll see the iconic E with a lot of what just look like random lines in it. But those lines are meant to represent the streets of the city. So the people of the city coming together to contribute, to celebrate success, and to really give back to the community. We thought that was really important. But then we started marketing it. We started wearing lapel pins and doing billboards and doing all the things you do when you brand. And people liked it. They thought it had a nice ring to it. He had a nice, good look. But there's also obviously a very strong aspirational component to that. And the aspirational component is meant to really remind us that we need to work on a daily basis to be as inclusive as possible when dealing in all matters, whether it's government or nonprofits or faith communities or corporate world. So while sometimes no community bats 100%, or right. So when we miss the mark, in one way, it's kind of nice to know, okay, if we're going to be a community where E is for everyone, then we have to be better at X, or we have to be better at this. So it does serve a marketing and branding purpose, but I think just as importantly, it serves an aspirational component that should be a daily reminder to all of us about how we interact with others.
Well, I think that you have the exhibit that you could work nonpartisan, which that means everyone and not just certain ones. And I like that ring to it because it does resonate with people, because I've seen you on many different occasions work nonpartisan. And that's what we need. That's what we need. That's the only way. We're stronger together,
Absolutely. I think back to not long after I became mayor, and my wife and I were coming back from the north side we had lunch on a weekend with a longtime friend of ours who's now since deceased, and she was in her early 90s at the time of this luncheon. And I wanted to drive by through a neighborhood that I'd had some complaints on, and she wanted to know why I cared about that. And I said, well, because I am everyone's mayor. I am not just one group's mayor. I am everyone's mayor. And so it's incumbent upon anyone who sits in this chair to be as tuned in as possible to all components of our community.
Mr. Mayor, we would like to compliment you and commend you on your leadership and governing style. You, particularly in my opinion, have always strived to be inclusive, as you said, with the E for Everyone campaign statement. So how have you been able to do this in terms of, being inclusive and nonpartisan in these times?
Yeah, some days it's easier than others, just to be honest with you. I think the way I govern goes back to the way my parents raised me and my sisters. We were born and raised in a house of faith. We were longtime members of First Presbyterian Church in Evansville. I've since become Catholic and practice my faith. But my parents, more importantly, or just as importantly, taught us how important it is to really treat everyone with dignity and respect, even people we don't agree with. So I credit my parents for for my governing style. And it's really, truly how I'm wired. I have a saying I use a lot. It's not all that clever or anything, but I think it's important, especially when I speak to schools. I talk about how nice matters. Nice matters. How we treat everyone. It's more important today probably than in any time in our history. And so for Christmas or my birthday or something a few years ago, Steve Schaefer, the deputy mayor, got me a little wooden desk plate that says nice matters. And I keep it in our conference room because I want everyone to know who comes into that meeting, that meeting space, that how we treat each other is really critical. And that's something that's important to me. So I think I've been able to sort of navigate these challenging times by treating everyone with dignity and respect. And what I have found, and now this is my 12th year in office, is I don't think that people expect to agree with me or me to agree with them 100% of the time. My wife and I have been married over 30 years. We don't agree 100% of the time. So I don't think it's, I don't think we should expect that we are going to agree with our mayor, our governor, our congressman, our president, whomever, 100% of the time. But I do think, and based on my experience, when people come in here, they want to be heard. and we listen. And over the years, we've certainly adapted, even acquiesced to other concerns. We don't always, but we always listen. And I think at the end of the day, that's what people want to. They want to think. I think they want to like their elected officials, and I think they want to believe that they're being heard. And that's how we've operated now in our 12th year. And I think that really has helped us get to where we have today. And I think it's one of the reasons we have the level of collaboration that we have in our community.
Well, I know you're a man of faith because I see you at our church often, Memorial Baptist Church.
Yes, ma'am.
You and your family.
Yes.
The grocery store, you mentioned when we was at the Ford Center, I think it was in October, November, about the grocery store being put up on Main Street. How, what status is that right now?
That's a great question because I just drove by there this morning and the build out is underway. So that area of North Main from roughly the Lloyd Expressway north to more or less Garvin Park, the Jacobsville area, sits in a food desert. And it's not the only food desert in the city, but there's a new 180 unit apartment complex that sits on that block that once housed a grocery store, and the grocery store had many names over the years. That was razed, and we put up this really nice new complex. But there's about 18,000 square feet of retail space, and a DG Market, which is a grocery version of Dollar General. It's their product, is going in about 11,000 square feet. That build out is occurring as we speak. I don't have the latest on when it might open, but I suspect it would be sometime in the first quarter, no later than the second quarter of this year. But the importance of that, and it's kind of funny. You think, oh, we need a grocery store. You reach out to Schnucks, you reach out to, all your usual suspects. It's hard to get a grocery store to go in any given location. Grocers want to make money. Apparently the margins in that business are very thin, and I'm sure it's gotten more difficult as inflation has hit us, but it was difficult, and we had a lot of community support. Carl Chapman, retired executive from Vectren, really ran point on that for us. I'll bet you he talked to 6 or 8 different companies about the prospect of going in there, and this has taken I would say a couple of years, if not longer. So it's been a difficult process, but I'm really happy that we've been able to land DG Market. They will offer fresh meat, fresh produce. So it's not a C store. It is literally a grocery store that will be in about 11,000 square feet on North Main Street.
So do you have another tentative date?
We don't have a tentative date. We hope sometime in the first half of the year. I hope it's sooner rather than later.
Okay, so Mr. Mayor, we want to ask you a few questions specifically related to AARP's Indiana's Livable Communities Priority issues involving housing, transportation, mobility, and high-speed internet. So the first question is, one of AARP's Indiana's recent local legislative priorities was the city's use of American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, dollars to support the Affordable Housing Trust Fund in early 2022. As our viewers may know, this fund helps build and repair affordable housing in the community for eligible residents. Can you share any plans for additional use of the American Rescue Plan Act dollars or other federal funding to support housing in the community?
Absolutely. So affordable housing, Evansville is like many cities, and there is a big need for affordable housing. And depending on which study you read, we have a deficit of anywhere from 1,500 to 1,800 affordable housing units in the city. We've committed to multiple organizations around town that we would invest $10 million from our $64 million in ARP money to our Affordable Housing Trust Fund. So that's the good news. The challenge comes with the regulatory requirements around the use of ARP dollars. All of those dollars have to be committed by 2024, and they have to all be spent by 2026. Committed by 24, spent by 26. So while that seems like a long way away, basically inside of 2 years, we have to know where we're going to spend all this money. And construction projects, as you know, take a long time. So our Department of Metropolitan Development, under the leadership of Kelly Coors, is in constant contact with developers about the need and their ability and their capacity to build affordable housing units in Evansville. We have an idea that we haven't floated to the city council yet, so I don't want to get out over my ski tips here, but we think sometime in certainly the first half of the year, we'll take to council and ask for their support of a program that will invest in some of our organizations that do really good work in this space. So organizations that are providing affordable housing units, whether they're a developer or a manager thereof, maybe they help remodel or renovate dilapidated structures so they can be used for affordable for people, with low to moderate income. So we're trying to put the fine finishing touches on that, but this is a big deal to us, and we want to get it right before our time in office is over, which is the end of this year. But I'm excited about the commitment. I think the last number I've seen, we've brought on somewhere between 350 to 375 new affordable housing units over the years. Again, I told you what the deficit is, but it just takes a long time to build out of that. I think the statistic is something like 51 or 52% of our housing stock in the city predates 1960. So it's been around a while. I think about the house that I was born and raised in out on the far north side, just north of North Park. My mom and dad bought it in 1961 for $13,000. And that was probably, that was the affordable housing of that era. And now, of course, you can't build a garage for $13,000. So we're mindful of the need and looking for the most creative ways that we can help fill the need and also be compliant with federal requirements.
Well, low income, like some of those apartments that are on Main Street, for some people, that's too high for them, So is there any kind of way that it can be where they could get financial support to help them pay that? Because if they get one check a month and the rent is $800, $900 a month, that's a lot for some people,
Yeah, so there's a fine line between, we tried to offer support to multifamily housing, and we've also tried to help fund permanent housing, so home ownership, because home ownership is the fastest way to building, having equity and is building wealth. And we'd like to be able to do more of that, but it takes more money and longer time to do that. So there are assistance programs available through township trustees' offices, through other nonprofit worlds, and they have their funding sources. We've been blessed with additional COVID-related federal dollars that we have flowed into those organizations. So we're mindful of that and certainly help connect people. The city of Evansville may not be the funding source for assistance, but there are certainly not other nonprofits or other governmental entities that are.
When in late 2020, AARP supported the city's adoption of its Complete Streets policy, which promotes connectivity in our community with added pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure. Also huge proponents of public transit system as a means of traveling around the city. It's an important tool for residents' ability in place to have transportation available to them. Are there any specific developments you would like to see related to pedestrian infrastructure and METs in the next year and beyond?
Yeah, if I can remember the whole question, let's see if I can get to them. But a number of things were popping into my mind as you were chatting, Diana. Um, in no particular order, in terms of pedestrian activity, this spring, a project will go to let, which means it will go out for bid for a new pedestrian crosswalk over US 41 at Washington Avenue. That will give students, mainly the students who go to and from Bosse High School, a safer means to cross busy Highway 41. This has been discussed and on the table, off the table for years and years and years. And just a couple of years ago, Governor Holcomb was in town and he agreed to walk that site with me. And he saw firsthand what the need was. And he instructed the Indiana Department of Transportation to work with us to figure out a solution. So it takes a while to design something like that. So construction may begin yet this year, depending on weather and depending on bids on that new pedestrian crosswalk. With that will come some transportation, some changes in vehicular traffic along 41 to accommodate that. But we think that's really important. In terms of METs, we just announced last week or the week before that we have a program through SWRCA and more for free public transportation for senior citizens. And I'm told that just in the first couple of weeks of its existence, that it is going really, really well, and we're getting a lot of takers. We're also working with the Toyota Mobility Foundation on developing a pilot program that will be a way to really relieve the stress of the METS mobility. So METS mobility, maybe you have a doctor's appointment, you know it's going to be next Wednesday at 2:00. You can schedule that and hopefully we're on time and it picks you up, you make your appointment and takes you back home. But there's a lot of demand and stress on that system. So we're working with the Toyota Mobility Foundation on a pilot program that will be more or less like an Uber or Lyft on steroids that will allow you through an app to schedule appointments other than through METS. But it's a project that METS is working on in conjunction with the Welborn Baptist Foundation and the Toyota Mobility Foundation. More to come on that in the weeks and months ahead, but we've been in the planning stages of that for, maybe a year or so. So we're really eager to start that out, and it will really be geared toward residents who live in low to moderate income areas.
So now, lastly, in early 2021, the city and the Evansville Vandenberg School Corporation received a state grant that expanded the Wi-Fi in the higher poverty neighborhoods. High-speed internet is critical for older adults to access telehealth and essential services, as well as stay connected to their networks in the community. Do you have any additional plans to expand high-speed internet locally?
We continue to analyze the data that we get from the success of that program. I think we ended up creating 5 kind of giant hotspots around the community, more or less affiliated in or associated with in proximity to the Evansville Promise Zone. So the Promise Zone is this large geographic area, and it's all contiguous from the western part of the city to basically Green River Road that runs through high poverty areas. The population is 23,000 people. So we know that the 5 hotspots that we put in have really helped increase availability to the internet to that population. We continue to analyze that, and as we find grants to expand that, we certainly will.
Sounds promising.
Would you support the creation for an advisory committee for 50 plus years? And
If there's a if there's a need, I would say I'm always leery about starting new groups because I don't want groups to get out there and be formed and be duplicative of efforts of others. We have a lot of people working in mental health space. I'm on like 2 or 3 mental health committees, and we're the same people going to different places to meet at different times of the month. So if there's a need, and the need can be very clearly defined, and that need is not being met by another group, I would support the formation of an advisory group.
okay. Yes, I think it would be a good thing, but I do understand what you're saying too. You know, I mean, um, it's spreading yourself too thin. You're here, you're there, and everywhere. You
Yeah,
know.
then you wonder what you're really getting done.
Yeah, and nothing is accomplished yet.
Right.
Right.
But you all feel good.
Mr. Mayor, at this time, we have a question that came to us through Facebook. Dan, would you like to put the question through? It says, transportation question. Does the city have plans to create additional shelters at our Mets bus stops?
I see that's from my friend Amy. Amy, hope you're doing well. Good to hear from you. We budget new ones every year, and off the top of my head, I can't tell you how many we have budgeted for this year. It just always comes down to availability of money, but we understand the need, and if we had our way, we'd put them up at practically every location.
Well, since you've already made it known that you're not going to run for reelection, sadly, you're not running for reelection this November. And we definitely thank you for your dedication, your service to Evansville and all of its citizens. But thinking in terms of who would come after you, is there anything that you would like for them to carry the baton and do that you wasn't able to do?
Well, I think, so I don't get political, I will say this. I'll talk about the qualities I think a successor should have. And I think among the qualities, in no particular order, they should be a people person. Exactly. Willing and comfortable to go anywhere, meet with anyone at any time. I think my successor should have the skills to help mediate disputes. This may not surprise anyone, but we get a lot of complaints in our office, and a great majority of the complaints are neighbor on neighbor or business on business. So we get to kind of referee a lot of disputes. So I hope my successor is someone who has a level of communication and mediation skills that can make people feel comfortable. This job takes a lot of stamina. People see me at ribbon cuttings. I do so much more than ribbon cuttings and go to different faith communities. There are a lot of calls in the middle of the night, and those calls, frankly, are never good news. So it's dealing with that. So I would caution that as voters consider who to vote for, they look who has the stamina to and personality to deal with that. So it's the way I do it. It's 65 or 70 hours a week, but it's easily been the most fulfilling job in my work life, and certainly feel blessed that I've had the opportunity to do it. And I'm not going to retire. My wife is quick to remind people of that. I have a job. I don't know what that job is going to be yet, but we're certainly going to be on the lookout, and hopefully we'll start a new job in January, about this time next year.
What would you, Mr. Mayor, like your legacy to be?
That's a question I have kind of difficulty answering because, again, kind of getting back to the way my parents raised us, I don't know that I hope people remember me as a mayor who would bring people together, even in times of conflict. I hope people will remember me as the mayor who did important work and participated in important work, but enjoyed himself along the way. And I hope people know and realize that I came to work every day to make the city a little better. And that's, I guess that's what I'm sure someone could probably be more eloquent about it than me, but I'm a little uncomfortable talking about that, frankly.
You don't have to be eloquent, because sometimes less is more, you know. And I've seen your walk, the 12 years, and it speaks for itself.
Thank you.
It says, let your work speaks for you. So that's what it does.
Thank you.
That's not fluff either, okay?
You obviously have a couple of fans here, Mr. Mayor.
I appreciate it.
So in closing, just thinking, what has been your favorite part of being the mayor, and maybe even your least favorite?
You know, I don't know that I have a least favorite. Yeah, I think the least favorite is when people lie to me.
Yeah.
You know, I don't expect everyone to agree with me 100%, but I want people to be honest. And so that's the part I dislike the most, and that's probably most people in life. But I think the thing I like the most is just interacting with people. I think I'm a people person. I'm a genuine people person. I like to be present. I try not to grab my telephone and look at text messages and emails when I'm engaged with folks. But I like speaking in schools, and I don't care if it's elementary school or college. I like going to different churches to interact. It's fun to see how everyone celebrates their faith. Everyone celebrates their faith a little differently. If you think you're a lifelong learner, and I think most AARP members consider themselves to be lifelong learners, you appreciate that there are different ways to practice faith, or a different way to run a business, or whatever. So I enjoy that aspect a lot.
Well, Mr. Mayor, we certainly thank you and appreciate your time that you've given us today, and we thank you for all that you've done for the community, for its people, its citizens, and thank you. That's all I want to say to you personally. Thank you.
You're quite welcome. Thanks for the time today.
Mr.
My
Mayor,
pleasure.
I thank you personally. Have a great day.
You too. And it's nice to see Vicki. Vicki is right. She's known me, I think, before high school.
I couldn't. I was trying to remember, but if you even had graduated when I first met you.
Yeah, going back to days at Evansville Civic Theater. So
Absolutely.
That's a lifetime ago. I had blonde hair then, and none of this gray stuff.
Yeah, and I was about 120 pounds lighter. So, if there's no more audience questions, I again want to echo everyone. It's been a real pleasure speaking with you, Lloyd, and thank you for being here. I also want to remind viewers that they can follow AARP Indiana on Facebook and on Twitter for other valuable content related to our social impact issues. If you enjoyed today's program, please consider sharing the video to share this great information. Thanks to everyone, and all of you take care.
All right.
Thanks. Have a good day.
Stand tall.
Mhm.